From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang and here are the news. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. expressed dismay over the lack of further progress in addressing the long-standing South China Sea or SCS disputes between the Philippines and China. The president cited that stalled development during his farewell meeting with outgoing Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Shilian, at the Malacañang Palace in Manila. President Marcos described the continued impasse as unfortunate, acknowledging the importance of dialogue and cooperation to ease tensions and resolve maritime issues in the contested waters. Despite this, President Marcos recognized Wang's dedication to improve the two nations' relations during his tenure. Wang is a seasoned Chinese diplomat with over 3 decades of experience in foreign affairs. He served as China's ambassador to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN from 2018 to 2019 before his appointment as ambassador to the Philippines. During his time in the Philippines, Wang was involved in numerous high-profile diplomatic engagements amid ongoing tensions over the South China Sea dispute.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang suspended government work and classes in all levels, both public and private, as well as work in government offices in Metro Manila and 7 other areas on Friday, September 26th, as Typhoon Opong is expected to barrel through southern Luzon. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin signed Memorandum Circular Number 102 on Thursday, declaring the suspension order upon the recommendation of the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRIMC. The suspension covers Metro Manila, Biliran, Eastern Samar, Northern Samar, Masbate, Romblon, and Sorsogon. Meanwhile, classes in all levels in the provinces of Aklan, Albay, Antique, Batangas, Bataan, Camarines Norte, Camarines Sur, Capiz, Cavite, Catanduanes, Guimaras, Iloilo, Laguna, Leyte, Marinduque, Negros Occidental, Oriental Mindoro, Rizal, and Quezon are also suspended to ensure public safety. The Presidential Communications Office or PCO urged the public to remain vigilant, avoid dangerous areas, and monitor official government advisories as heavy rains and possible flooding are expected based on the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical, and Astronomical Services Administration or PAG-ASA forecasts. In Memorandum Circular Number 102, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin said, agencies responsible for basic, vital, and health services, preparedness, and response duties must continue to remain operational to ensure continuity of essential government functions. He said localized cancellation or suspension of classes and work in government offices in other areas may still be implemented by their local chief executives.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang has directed all concerned government agencies to implement the 2024 National Disaster Response Plan, NDRP, a strategic plan aimed at ensuring a timely, effective, and coordinated disaster response. Memorandum Circular or MC 100, signed by Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin on September 23, ordered the adoption and implementation of the 2024 NDRP to preserve lives, provide immediate assistance to affected communities, and minimize exacerbation of emergency situations. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council or NDRIMC through the Office of Civil Defense or OCD was tasked with spearheading the implementation of the 2024 NDRP according to MC 100. National government agencies including government-owned and controlled corporations are directed while LGUs are encouraged to support the implementation of the 2024 NDRP and its related programs. MC 100 mandates close coordination between the OCD and the Presidential Communications Office, PCO, to ensure the effective dissemination of the 2024 NDRP to all concerned government agencies and offices. The funding requirements for the implementation of the Strategic Disaster Response Plan will be sourced from the existing appropriations of the respective agencies subject to applicable laws, rules, and regulations. The NDRIMC has recommended the adoption of the 2024 NDRP to provide overall directions to all agencies and networks involved in disaster risk reduction and management, with a particular focus on disaster response. The ultimate goal of the NDRP 2024 is to save lives, ensure immediate assistance to affected communities, and prevent the worsening of emergency situations through a well-established and effective disaster response and early recovery system. MC 100 takes effect immediately.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. emphasized the need to implement the Sagip-Saka Act and create a Congressional Commission on Agriculture or AgriCom to ensure food security and affordability in the country. President Marcos made a statement after meeting with select cabinet officials and lawmakers at the Malacañang Palace in Manila. The meeting was attended by Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin, Department of Agriculture or DA Secretary Francisco Chulo Jr., and Agrarian Reform Secretary Conrado Estrella III, based on a photo shared by the Presidential Communications Office or PCO on its official Facebook page. Also present were Senator Francis Kiko Pangilinan, Apayao Lone District Representative Eleanor Bulot Begtang, and Quezon 1st District Representative Mark Enverga. In a statement, the PCO said President Marcos led the discussion on the implementation of the Sagip-Saka Act to ensure direct purchase of produce and support for farmers. The expansion of extension services from the DA and the Cooperative Development Authority or CDA was also discussed. During the meeting, President Marcos also ordered a review and amendment of the Agricultural Tariffication Law to better protect local produce. President Marcos also approved the creation of AgriCom, a commission tasked with preparing broader reforms in the agricultural sector. PCO said President Marcos also ordered the DA to coordinate with Bersamin and Pangilinan's offices for the crafting of an executive order or EO establishing the palay buying floor price. This as President Marcos sought the establishment of a floor price for the purchase of palay and husk rice to prevent unscrupulous traders from taking advantage of farmers during harvest season. Pangilinan recommended setting a floor price for buying palay and engaging local government units or LGUs in palay procurement through the Sagip-Saka Act, noting that the farm gate prices of palay remain low during the peak harvest season, leaving farmers vulnerable to traders who buy their produce at lower rates. President Marcos ordered a full implementation of the Sagip-Saka Act of 2019, also known as Republic Act 11321, to support farmers and the Benteng Bigas program, which makes rice available at 20 pesos per kilo. PCO said President Marcos also ordered a review of the Charter of the National Food Authority or NFA to strengthen the provision on farmer support services. RA 12078 extended the implementation of the Rice Competitiveness Enhancement Fund or RCEF until 2031.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has signed a law promoting the safe utilization of nuclear energy by creating the Philippine Atomic Energy Regulatory Authority or PhilAtom. The President on September 18 signed Republic Act or RA 12305 or the Philippine National Nuclear Energy Safety Act, providing for a comprehensive legal framework for the peaceful, safe, and secure use of nuclear energy in the Philippines. Under RA 12305, the PhilAtom is established as an independent and quasi-judicial body with sole and exclusive jurisdiction to exercise regulatory control for the safe uses of nuclear energy radiation sources in the country. The PhilAtom will be headed by Director General who will be appointed by the President. According to the new law, the Director General of PhilAtom will serve a 5-year term with a salary grade of 31 and may be reappointed for successive terms of the same duration. The PhilAtom is mandated to issue and periodically update regulations, standards, and guides to specify the principles, requirements, and associated criteria for its regulatory judgments, decisions, and actions. It is directed to establish processes for developing and amending regulations, standards, and guides that include consultation with the public and other interested parties. RA 12305 prohibits the unauthorized siting, construction, operation, commissioning, and decommissioning of a nuclear or radiation facility, acquisition, production, manufacture, import, export, distribution, sale, transfer, use, storage, or disposal of nuclear or other radioactive materials, use of testing of radiation generators, and radioactive waste management activities. The law allows the PhilAtom to establish an inspection program and enforcement policy to ensure compliance by unauthorized parties. The PhilAtom is mandated to enforce the implementing rules and regulations of RA 12305, assist the national government in the development of national policies and strategies for safe nuclear energy use, and review and assess applications for authorizations for nuclear and radiation facilities and associated activities. It also has the authority to adopt the schedule of fees and charges for authorization, as well as suspend, modify, or revoke authorizations due to failure to comply with the law. The PhilAtom will also serve as a point of contact for matters related to physical protection under the relevant international instruments to which the Philippines is a party, including cooperation and assistance arrangements with other states and international organizations.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has signed into law a measure seeking to provide Filipino Muslims better access to Sharia courts through digitalization. President Marcos signed Republic Act RA 12304, which amends RA 9997 or the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos or NCMF Act of 2009. Under RA 12304, the NCMF and the Department of Information and Communications Technology or DICT, in coordination with the Supreme Court, will create a digital platform to allow paperless filing of pleadings and other court submissions. The NCMF shall also coordinate with the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA on the proper collection of statistical data for Muslim Filipinos at the national, regional, provincial, city, and municipal levels. The NCMF's Bureau of Legal Affairs, meanwhile, is tasked to provide Muslim Filipinos with legal education and assistance in case of litigation involving their persons or interests. According to RA 12304, the Bureau will also act as the legal counsel of the NCMF investigating cases involving its personnel and valid complaints brought before the Commission. The Legal Affairs Bureau is also mandated to ensure equitable access to Sharia courts and facilitate the filing or submission of appropriate documents with the proper Sharia court for Muslim Filipino litigants who are in a region where there is no existing Sharia court. The NCMF is directed to submit an annual report on the implementation of RA 12304 to the Senate President, House Speaker, and chairpersons of the Senate Committee on Cultural Communities Communities and Muslim Affairs and the House Committee on Muslim Affairs. RA 12304 takes effect 15 days after its publication in the official gazette or in a newspaper of general circulation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has signed into law Republic Act or RA 12307, creating 11 additional branches of the municipal trial courts in cities, MTCC, in the 11th Judicial Region in Davao City. RA 12307, signed by the President on September 18, mandates the Supreme Court to assign the respective branch numbers to the newly created courts. The Chief Justice, in coordination with the Department of Justice or DOJ, is directed to ensure the immediate inclusion of the new court branches' operationalization in the SC program. The funding for the personnel operations in courtrooms will be included in the Annual General Appropriations Act, according to 12307. The new law also provides for the creation of additional positions in the Public Attorney's Office, or PAO, and the Prosecution Service as mandated by existing laws, such as RA 10071 or the Prosecution Service Act of 2010 or 2010, and RA 9406. RA 12307 takes effect 15 days after its publication in the official gazette or in a newspaper of general circulation.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has signed into law Republic Act or RA 12306, granting the Pampanga Rural Electric Service Cooperative or PRESCO Incorporated a 25-year franchise to operate and maintain a power distribution system in 4 towns of Pampanga Province. The new law, signed by the President last September 18, allows PRESCO to construct, install, establish, manage, and operate facilities for the distribution of electricity in 34 barangays across the municipalities of Mexico, Arayat, Santa Ana, and Magalang. Under the franchise, PRESCO is mandated to provide reliable and affordable electricity service, ensure non-discriminatory access to its system, and promote consumer protection through a dedicated consumer desk. It is also required to comply with labor standards, create employment opportunities, and allow on-the-job training for local residents. The law further directs the cooperative to secure regulatory approval from the Energy Regulatory Commission or ERC, the Department of Energy or DOE, and the National Electrification Administration or NEA for its operations, while giving the government the authority to temporarily take over the facilities in times of war, calamity, or other emergencies. PRESCO's franchise shall run for 25 years, commencing from the expiration of its existing franchise unless sooner canceled or revoked. It is likewise required to submit annual operational and compliance reports to Congress, with failure to do so subject to penalties.
Dateline Malacañang.
Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin categorically denied any involvement in the allocation of funds for the Department of Public Works and Highways or DPWH infrastructure projects. This came after former DPWH Undersecretary Roberto Bernardo, during the resumption of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee's hearing on alleged anomalies in flood control projects, claimed that in 2024, he met with Education Undersecretary Traigive Olaivar to discuss the unprogrammed appropriations supposedly intended for the Office of the Executive Secretary or OES. Bernardo alleged that Olaivar asked for a 15% cut from the 2.85 billion pesos worth of infrastructure projects for Bersamin's office, adding that the agreed commission was delivered at various locations in Metro Manila. In a statement, Bersamin called Bernardo's accusation not true. Bersamin also said his office had no dealings with either Bernardo or Olaivar, noting that the allegation had already been refuted by the education official. He described the claim as an attempt to damage his reputation.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, dismissed the alleged destabilization plot to oust President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., calling such information baseless and unfounded. In a statement, AFP Public Affairs Office Chief Colonel Ceres Trinidad said the AFP rejects malicious narratives about supposed plans to assist the president or launch destabilization efforts. Trinidad added that these claims are baseless, unfounded, and far removed from reality. The supposed plot, according to reports, was supposed to take place before the September 21 anti-corruption rally spawned by recent discoveries of corruption in government flood control projects involving government engineers and politicians. Trinidad said the AFP's loyalty does not rest on politics or personalities, but firmly on the Constitution, the Republic, and the Filipino people. He also maintained that the military organization remains a professional and disciplined force with a chain of command intact and united. President Marcos, through Executive Order 94, has already created an independent fact-finding body to investigate the alleged irregularities in government flood control and other infrastructure projects.
Dateline Malacañang.
Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak underscored 4 key priorities for overseas Filipinos in a town hall meeting with the Filipino Community, or PhilCom, in New York on the sidelines of the 80th United Nations General Assembly, or UNGA. In a news release, the Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, said Kakdak, joined by the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, and the Philippine Consulate General in New York, met with around 50 PhilCom leaders at the historic Philippine Center in Manhattan. Discussions focused on migrant welfare, reintegration, and the impact of changing foreign policies in host countries. During the discussion, Kakdak highlighted the Philippine government's ongoing commitment to assist Filipinos overseas, underscoring 4 main priorities, namely the digitalization of services through streamlined platforms such as eTravel and eGovPH, the Kumusta Kabayan initiative with the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, or OWA, to proactively check on overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, on site, especially those in the vulnerable sector like domestic workers. Kakdak also announced the pilot launch of electronic contract verification for OFWs in Dubai who are changing employers. Another priority is the expansion of welfare support and services, highlighting assistance through the Action Fund for legal, financial, and medical aid, as well as specialized care at the OFW hospital in Pampanga. Meanwhile, Kakdak also reaffirmed efforts to promote fair and ethical recruitment and combat illegal recruitment, human trafficking, and other types of exploitative practices. Last was the reintegration and economic empowerment of OFWs, where Kakdak encouraged support for returning OFWs through the National Reintegration Network, which includes mentorship and franchise opportunities with the Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI. As a son of an OFW parent, Kakdak shared personal reflections as he recalls how his father once told him that he is his remittance. He said this experience continues to inspire his dedication to ensuring that the sacrifices of migrant workers lead to better futures for their families. Meanwhile, PhilCom leaders expressed gratitude for the government's initiatives and pledged stronger collaboration with the DMW and DFA, particularly through the Migrant Workers Office in Washington, D.C., to further strengthen protection and empowerment for overseas Filipinos.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, for Dateline Malacañang, access to healthcare and medicine for overseas Filipino workers or OFWs, including their families, will soon be made easier through a new mobile diagnostic clinic and the Alagang OWA Botica. At the ceremonial turnover of the mobile clinic in Pasay City, OWA Administrator Patricia Yvonne Kaunan thanked First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos and Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. for donating a lab for all mobile medical and clinical laboratory track to the agency, which would benefit OFWs and their families. Aside from the mobile clinic, OWA also launched its Alagang OWA Botica under the Yakap Yaman ng Kalusugan program. Kaunan said the mobile clinic is equipped with X-ray, ultrasound, and laboratory facilities. Free consultations and diagnostic services will be exclusively provided to active OWA members and their dependents through the program, starting with weekly operations at the program's headquarters in Pasay City. Meanwhile, OWA also signed a memorandum of agreement with VidaCure, an accredited partner of the Yakap at Gamot program under PhilHealth, for the establishment of the Alagang OWA Botica. Through the partnership, active OWA members and their families will have direct access to essential medicines. The first rollout of the Alagang OWA Botica will start on September 29 at the OWA Central Office, while the mobile clinic will operate once a week. The agreement also introduces an enhanced primary care package expanding the former Consulta program, offering free or subsidized consultations, laboratory and cancer screening tests, and other vital health services for active OWA members and their families. The mobile clinic will initially serve Metro Manila before expanding to regional OWA offices, while the Alagang OWA Botica is targeted to roll out nationwide in the coming months.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.